Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Talks with V. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited about this evening's episode. We are talking about sex education. It's one of those conversations that people want to have, but they don't want to have. So we're going to do that this evening. I wanted to start off and just talk about the fact that a lot of folks are out here having sex, but have a limited knowledge about the topic. And so we're in luck this evening because we're not only talking about the fact that, or staying in the realm of prevention, of not getting pregnant or not getting STD, but we're going to focus more on the enjoyment, the spiritual connection, and the just being intentional about creating. So, without further ado, we have our two lovely guests here, sexologist Rabiia Ali and Tantra therapist. Oh my goodness, Pran. Well, I call her Renee because that is what I am used to calling her, but it's Prandar Mir, right?
On
Okay,
dog.
I said it right. Okay, and so welcome, ladies. I'm so happy to have you this evening, and so I would love for Rabiia to go ahead and introduce herself and tell us a little bit about your experience, what you do, and how long you have been educating as a sexologist.
Well, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Actually, I'm not a sexologist, but I do have or give education about sex with regard to relationships and marriages and relationships, couples therapy. So I've been doing therapy for about 6 years. I've been practicing as a
Hmm.
licensed therapist for the last 2 years. So I'm practicing in Sacramento, and so my main focus is about marriage and relationships and how to deal with families and emotional connections with families, emotional
Hmm.
connections between couples, and how to navigate those types of issues.
Right. And you do give a lot of education to the younger women as well about their
Yes,
bodies and
um,
teaching them about the female's body and the male's body and, what you can do with it
yes,
and
all of
how
that
to
is
be
involved.
safe. Okay.
Yes,
So,
ma'am, all of
well,
that.
thank you. Thank you so much. We're happy to have you. And next we have Miss Renee, aka Brenda Mayer. Brenda, I'm gonna get that right eventually. you know. It's Pranhara Prem, right?
Okay,
Prandara
good. I like
Prem.
that. I like that. That's good. So my name is Renee,
Mhm.
also known as Prandara Prim. Prandara Prim is my Tantra
Prandara.
initiated name, which means to go with the flow of love and life. So I love that
Mm,
name. But I also
yeah.
love Renee because it means reborn, right?
Oh,
So
beautiful.
I've been in the field for 20 years as a psychotherapist. I had my LCPC licensed clinical professional counsel when I was in the States. But I let it go because I'm living in Brazil the last 11 years, and I'm like, I'm not going to pay for a certificate. I'm not going to pay for a degree. What do you call that? Certificate, right? I'm forgetting
Oh,
now.
for there. Hmm.
Um, if I'm not living in the States, but that's what I had, and
Hmm.
similar to you, Rabia, I worked a lot with couples, families, relationships, and then when I moved to Brazil, I actually studied Tantra and started working as a Tantra therapist. I got my training about 6 years ago, my formal training. And
Hmm.
prior to that, within the last 11 years, I was studying Tantra in India. I studied in Thailand and Bali, as well as
Wow.
here in Brazil, as well as with a teacher from Europe, from Estonia. So
Mm.
I've been 20 years in the field of psychology and six in as a trained tantric therapist.
Well, that's awesome. And I really feel like that's a nice, healthy balance to have all that background with therapy and
Hmm.
psychology, and then the tantra therapist, and then the different sex education. You're going to be well rounded, to be able to give advice and guidance from, different perspectives. So I love
Hmm.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay. Well, welcome, welcome, ladies. Welcome, queens. And so we're going to get into this because people had some interesting questions. Um, so we picked a
I
few,
love it.
and there were a couple others, and I hope maybe we can get to all of them. And we definitely want to look at the audience and what they have, their questions as well. So to everyone at home who's watching, feel free to throw your questions in the chat. I'm going to be pulling it up. So um, I'll be keeping an eye out so we can talk about try and answer those questions the best that we can. Well, these two ladies can. So first, we want to kind of start with how has the lack of education about sex affected relationships? And then I'll go ahead and let Renee take this one first.
Okay. Okay. Repeat the question, please. How has
The lack of education about
Mhm.
sex, how has that
Mhm.
affected relationships?
Oh gosh, so that's a big one because
Mhm.
we don't get educated about sex, and
Mhm.
we don't get educated about sex, right?
Right.
Um, as you kind of mentioned in your flyer, if we're talking about we have sex education is about STDs, right? So
Mhm.
we're not
Don't
talking,
get
and so
pregnant.
what happens is a lot of people go to friends, pornography, different things like that, magazines.
Mhm.
Now we have way more ways of finding out information, but a lot of times you're finding out information that's incorrect. And so people are
Mm.
not learning how to have more intimacy. People are not learning how to communicate. People are not learning how to have more connections within their relationships. They're watching
Mm.
porn, they're having this rough sex, and they're thinking, oh, I did it. She's yelling and she's screaming. But a lot of times she's yelling and screaming because she's in pain,
Right,
right?
not because she likes it.
Not because she likes it, right? And so then, so then you're creating this really a false relationship because the man,
Mhm.
or we could be same sex, but one
Mhm.
person is thinking that, they're doing the thing and the other person is not sharing what they're feeling, don't even know what they enjoy because we haven't been
Mhm.
taught to
Right.
self-explore, to find
Mhm.
out what we like so that we can share that with our partner. And so
Definitely. Yep.
so to answer your question real quick, it really creates distance within relationships. It
Mm.
creates distance from people being able to have true connection, true communication and honesty, and feeling comfortable enough to
Mhm.
really become vulnerable, truly vulnerable, to have the best relationship that they can have.
Mm. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I totally hear you on that. I was posting some things. I posted something recently on my Instagram, and they were talking about someone's opinion, and that's what it is a lot of times because so many people are uneducated about it, but they're out here doing it, and so then
Mhm.
they have their opinions about why do men cheat, why do women cheat, things like that. And so the guy was stating that, well, men cheat because they're not satisfied. And then another guy jumps in and he explains that it's more a sum up. Hey, it's
Mhm.
more so about that he's competing with his own memories, because when he's young, it's just about like doing the thing, getting that experience out there. And then you're just out there doing it. And then you don't learn how to practice celibacy. And so you've built up this large resume, and this can go on either side, this large resume. And so you're comparing, and so
Mhm.
nothing is good enough. And here's this woman that's like, oh, maybe I can do this tricks and do these things here. And it's just like, you'll never you'll never be enough, because
Right.
the reason that you guys are both doing it is two different. You have two different mindsets. So he's competing with his mind, or maybe it was vice versa, and the other person is trying to have a relationship or a connection. So that's
Right.
really, really good, really good. And Ravia, what are your thoughts on that question?
I think that there is um, no education. I mean, the formal education that we get is about anatomy, right? It's about how
Mm.
the sexual or the genitals, how they function, right? And then what, like what, I'm sorry, what is, how do you pronounce it? Prenda prim?
Frondara.
Prandara
Pandara.
prim. Okay.
Short.
Okay. Prandara. And what she was saying about the fact that people are not, when you do get some education, it's from your friends or it's from other people in the
Mhm.
neighborhood, or someone that you might, talk to on a regular basis, and you get wrong, incorrect information.
Mhm.
That happens a lot even with any, formalized education. The information is incorrect, right? The
Right.
messaging is in the wrong direction. So the messaging usually is abstinence, or the messaging is usually for young girls, make sure you close your legs, or you make sure you
Mhm.
don't do certain things because you're never going to be valuable if you don't, if you are, sexual before your time, or your husband is not going to want you, those types of messages that we receive, right? And so
Mhm.
when you have all of those things and all that conditioning that happens over your lifetime, when you get into a relationship with someone, it's already starting off to not be a healthy relationship,
Right.
Right.
because you have this message that I'm supposed to do this thing, right? I'm supposed to keep this thing until this man comes and opens it up, right? Opens up my
Mhm.
flower or my lock or whatever it is that, we're
Mhm.
being told. And this one man is supposed to do it this one time, and it's supposed to be great and wonderful. And then we get there and it's like, what?
Mhm.
What is going on? So, and then we don't have, information from our parents to say, this is what sex is really supposed to be like. I have those conversations with my
Mhm.
children, but a lot of people don't have
Yeah.
those conversations.
Right.
Telling women like 95% of the time, men are not going to please you sexually. You're not going to have, you might have one or two partners that do exactly what it is that you want them to do, right? We don't get that type of education. So we get
The
into
real
these
deal.
yeah, we get into these relationships and we're like, this is not at all what somebody told me was supposed to happen. So now what am I supposed to do? And now I'm
Exactly.
mad at you because you don't know. And now you're mad at me because I don't know. But neither one of us has the information that we're supposed to get in order to
Exactly.
make this a good situation.
Mhm.
A hundred
And
percent.
piggybacking on what you were saying, right? There's so much shame and guilt around that, right? So much shame and guilt
Right.
because
Mhm.
what you're saying, women are taught, close your legs, don't do this, don't do that. And then
Mhm.
we hold these traumas in our bodies.
Absolutely.
We hold the traumas in our bodies. And so
Right.
then when it comes time to be in a relationship, we have all of this stuff that's being held, all of these blockages, these traumas, and we can't have healthy relationships. We can't have a healthy sex life,
Right.
Right.
with depression.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to
And
mention
that's
the
and
sexual
that's
violation was included in there. Right.
right.
If that was part of it. Yeah.
Mm,
So, I mean, and to someone, someone just mentioned, are men responsible for women's orgasms? And I think that what we're sharing is about that lack of education, and that lack of education is coming on both sides. The woman not,
Hmm.
knowing, being educated properly of what to expect. The man, he's not knowing. I know a lot of guys, they speak about when they had their first experience, they were just
mm,
hoping, they were just happy to be there, and
right.
hoping like, well, maybe it'll be good,
Uh-huh.
and that's it. It's not a knowing, it's not being comfortable, or because I'm educated,
Right.
on this. It's just kind of like question mark. But any of you ladies can answer that question. Are men
Yeah.
responsible for women's
No,
orgasm?
no, 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 no.
No.
The woman is responsible for her orgasm, the woman and the
Mhm.
woman alone, right? And there are a lot of women who actually put that pressure on the man and says, the man or my partner is responsible for my orgasm. But ladies, you're responsible for your orgasm. You have
Right,
to, this is two part. This is two part. Because yes, the woman is responsible. She has to know her body. She has to be able to be comfortable enough to communicate her needs. But also
right,
the man or the partner also needs to do his work to learn how to satisfy a woman, right?
right,
Because it can't just be all on her. Okay, she's done her work. She knows her body. She knows she can tell me what to do. No, you have to take tantra courses. You have to study with a sexologist, whatever it is,
hmm,
your sex education to really learn. Because I remember before I got into this, I thought I had a problem. I could not like fingering was so painful for me. I hated.
mm,
I was like, it hurts. I didn't like it. But it wasn't until
mm,
after tantra, like I'm getting tantric massages and getting my yoni, massage with the finger. It was feeling good, and so I learned isn't it wasn't something wrong with me. It was the man, the men, all the different men I'd been with didn't know what they were doing. So
mm,
yes, you also as as a man, you have to learn as well, learn how to, get a woman aroused, but the woman also has to be responsible for her orgasm, for her pleasure.
Right.
Right. Right.
I think it's a shock sometimes, with some women when they come across a man who really knows how to touch you and touch different spots and caress or yoni massage, all of those things, different things have studied a woman's body. It's a shock because it's just like that's
Yeah.
not really like as common. And obviously you can't really say what is common, like because you only have your few experiences or however many experiences that you had. But from your experience, you're like, oh, okay, well, this guy knows what he's doing. We wonder where he
Mhm.
learned all this.
Mhm.
So, go ahead, Rabia.
Well, I think that there's also not that men are not responsible for women's orgasms.
Mhm,
Absolutely not. You should know exactly what feels good to you. But there's an issue sometimes of safety, right? I
Mhm.
don't feel
mhm.
safe enough to tell him this is what it is that I need. And then there's ego involved where if she has to tell me what I have to do, then that means that I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
You
Mhm,
might not know what you're doing with her because this
mhm.
doesn't feel good to her. And if somebody's telling you this doesn't feel good, try something else, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you as a man,
Right. It's
right?
not a
Or a
dig.
woman, right? It's because of the fact that it doesn't feel good to her and she knows what feels good to her. But then if you respond in a way that makes her believe that she can't tell you what it is that she needs, then that's never going
Mhm,
to happen either, right? So there
Right.
has to
mhm,
be some type of communication. I always say communication about that needs to happen like on the first date. Like I'm not that you need to
mhm,
talk about sex, but talk about this is what's comfortable for me. This is what I feel
mhm.
safe doing. If I don't feel safe having sex with you, that's because of this, whatever. But it should be that you are able to verbalize.
Right.
It's not good at all ever,
At
but
all.
you should be able you should be able to verbalize
No
this
pounding.
doesn't feel good, right? This is not this is not good to me. And so this is how it would feel good. And as a matter of fact, it was funny because I had responded to a post about something about oral sex, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And I was saying, when a woman tells you, stay right there, right?
Right. She's
Because
not
that's
Right.
what she
playing.
knows. She
What are you
knows that's
doing?
where it is. That's where the spot is. So if men listen or women listen to their partner, right, and know what it is, if they're trying to pleasure them, this is
Mhm,
how this is what's pleasurable for me. And then take the
mhm.
ego out of it and take the safety, make sure it's a safe environment, then it definitely would happen.
Right. That was your
But
freebie, huh? He's
mhm.
getting a freebie.
How many times do we say stay right there and then they move? And it's like,
All the
oh,
time.
God. I'm like, I
We need
just
to
said,
find out why. What's that about?
what I
Because
think?
they don't listen. They don't
They
hear.
don't listen. But I also think that they don't have the strength in their jaws, that
Mm,
maybe they get tired, so they gotta move. So it's
They're
like,
like,
right.
oh no, maybe she might like this other thing that's less
Right.
work. I
Right.
don't know.
But the thing is, if
oh,
you do it like she says, you won't be down there that long.
exactly, that's true. That's
Now that may be a conversation that has to happen then like outside of that moment,
Yes.
like,
Hmm.
true.
okay, now we can sit around and have this conversation about last time, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
Right.
blah. And
Right.
so when I said this, like, why did you do something different? Like, no, like we can just, be
Mhm.
free, and have this
Right.
conversation, no egos involved. And then maybe, then he can say, yeah, my mouth was hurting. So I was thinking, if you like that, you might love this. And this took,
Right. Right.
I
But
don't
We
know.
can
it's a
be
lot
like,
of other things,
no.
and it's a lot of other things involved too. It's not just using your mouth, it's using
Right.
your hands, using your words, it's a lot of things that are involved that people don't necessarily know comes with that. I have to
Mhm.
feel a certain way. And if we're trying to establish intimacy, all that needs to happen, right? Touch me right
Right.
there and do this thing, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Different people. I mean, different people like different things, but I think there are some folks that there's certain things that are like a majority people enjoy, a majority women
Mhm.
enjoy, majority men enjoy. So it's just about, asking those questions and being open. So
Yeah.
I think one of the ladies, like Kay said, that she once heard that you look at someone, watch someone pleasure themselves, and then you'll kind of learn what they like through that. Okay.
Mm. I don't,
I don't know. I mean, maybe like yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so our next question is,
But that gets into a little bit of the exhibitionist too, right?
I mean, because some
yeah.
people are like that though. Like some
Yeah.
people enjoy, masturbating in front of their partner, and
Hmm.
I
Mutual
I think that a
masturbation.
lot of men
Yeah.
like to watch that. Do you wait? Do you think do they like it rough or soft? Oh, okay, okay,
Oh,
okay. So,
asking.
okay, they like those certain things. I guess if she's
Oh,
pleasuring herself or he's pleasuring himself, and you're watching, like you can understand like what kind of style they like or whatnot.
yeah,
'Cause that makes sense. Like
that makes
that would
sense.
make sense. So our next question is: how has culture impacted
Mm,
our views on sex and our openness, to sex? Because some people are very open and some people aren't, and some different cultures are more like people may think they're more sexual than others. So how has culture impacted that? Um, Go ahead, Raviia.
okay. So I always say women are sexual objects and not sexual, or not considered sexual beings, right? We're not considered to be able to have sex for pleasure, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in our culture, in African American culture, a lot of women have been sexually violated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get to a place of where you have violation on top of cultural norms or cultural rules that we have to follow, right? The
Mm-hmm.
things that we learn about sex is because of cultural norms. You don't want to look like a hoe out in the streets, so you don't do certain things that your mama told you not to, right? That's like everybody has that same, or has had that message from somebody in their family at some point, because
Right.
of the fact that we stick to these rules about life, right? This is what we're supposed to be doing. So if we were
Mm-hmm.
actually considered sexual beings, we were actually considered someone, or a person who was able to be liberated and sexually free and sexually empowered to be
Mm-hmm.
pleasured when we need to
Mm-hmm.
be pleasured with as many people as we need to be pleasured by, then culturally, sex
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be taboo.
Right.
It wouldn't be something we wouldn't talk about, because we're not talking about it because we don't want to look like to this man that we're trying to get to be his wife, like we're
Right.
something other than a purist, virtuous woman, right? So we're
Mhm.
not going to talk about it to him. We're not going to talk about it to our friends because we don't want them to think that we're a hoe either.
Right. Right, right, right. No,
so,
it's a real
so
thing.
and it's taboo because we've held on to these rules and these
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about life that don't necessarily follow along with the actions that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? We're having sex. Everybody's out there having sex, but when you
Whole
have
lot.
these now, a whole lot, right?
It's
So
like,
you
why
have
don't
these
you do it
rules,
right? Do it
right? But when you have the
right,
rules in the back of your head, right, you have all these things that you go into the sexual act with. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to say this. He's not supposed to do this thing. We're not supposed to do
Right.
this thing. We're not supposed to talk about it with other people because we don't. I don't want people to think that I'm this. And you go into all that, you can't have a pleasurable experience because you will have all this repression of all of these messages that's being received. And I
Right.
say, us as a people, we need to stop that. We need to stop that. We need to let go of that, because
Right.
we are doing it, but we're doing it to the detriment of our mental health, because now we have all of these issues and all of this trauma based on just things that were said to us, and things
Mhm.
and ways, or the things that people perceive us to be, that's not
Mhm.
societally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No. True.
Yeah. So true.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And-
and it's interesting because I've lived and I've been around many different cultures, right? Just from traveling. And so it's real interesting living here in Brazil after having lived in the US.
So
And I'm sure
excited.
all of you have heard, about Brazil, right? And many people are
Yeah.
like, oh, you go to Brazil, carnival, going out there and having sex. I mean, Brazil is a culture that's way more open. People
Mhm.
are way more open in terms of their sexuality. And it's
Mm.
interesting because I teach Tantra courses in the US. I've taught it throughout South America, Brazil, different places. And it's interesting when I go to the US, I could see the repression. I'm teaching a
Mhm.
course and everybody, they're putting on their bathing suits. I'm like, well, how are you going to learn to massage your partner, the genitals, in a bathing suit? But then here in
Mm.
Brazil, everybody's taking off their clothes. Like
They
it's
just come
no.
out in a robe. They're like, we ready.
We're ready. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to pleasure my partner. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
and so I see that difference, right? And then you go to India, like I was in India. India, but and this is the sad thing because Tantra comes from India.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
After the colonization, they became so repressed, right? With the influence
Mm,
of Europe and the church. And so sex became such a sin and something so forbidden. I mean, to the
mm,
point it's ridiculous. It's so bad that there's so much rape in India. Like when I was
mm.
walking, people would say, don't go there, be careful, don't go there, you might get raped. And then what's happening? Because of this repression, people are repressed and they're acting out sexually. I'm on
Mm.
a train, a man will kind of come and rub up against me. Not that they don't do that in the States or in Brazil, they do that here too, right?
Oh
But
wow.
in India, it's way worse in terms of the amount of sexual assaults, violations that's happening
Oh.
on a day to day, right?
Mm. It's
Now, when
interesting.
you look at other cultures, like in East Africa, they have kunyaza. Kunyaza is all about female pleasure. I mean, it is a
Mm.
thing to
Yeah.
make sure women, yes, women, kunyaza. There's even a book called Kunyaza that talks about it, that talks about making sure the woman ejaculates and has orgasms. So
Mm.
imagine in this culture, everybody's happy.
I
Everybody
bet.
because if the woman is getting satisfied, you best better know her partner's gonna be great, right?
Mm. Everything is gonna be good.
Everything's gonna be good. um, and so sexuality really does influence all other areas of our lives. It influences our creativity, it
Mhm.
influences our mood, it influences our productivity in the workspace, in school and just everything. So when
Mm.
you have cultures that's that represses the sexuality, um, people are more stressed. Like if you look in the States, people are way more stressed. People are having heart attacks. All
Mm.
kinds of things are happening, right? Here in Brazil, this is why I live in Brazil. I've been in Brazil the last 11 years. People are
Mhm.
happy. People are happy. You know,
Oh, that's so
I mean,
awesome.
everybody, it just seems like everybody's on the streets dancing and singing all the time.
Yes, and I see you having a good time. I seen you doing your pole dance, and I was just like, "You bet, yes, you
Yeah,
better get it."
I'm getting it.
I'm
And
inspired.
and it's so funny because I keep thinking like this part of me sometimes it's like, man, if I lived in the US, I would blow up. This work is needed. But then I'm
Mhm.
like, if I go back to the US, I'm gonna be stressed. I'm gonna have to work like 10, 15 hours a day. Right now, I could
Mhm.
work 3 hours a day. I could just enjoy life and have fun and be
Oh,
happy.
wow.
And walk around nude if I want. I'm a nudist. I love being nude in the house. I sent you a message. I was like, is this gonna be on video or audio? Because I wanted to know if I'd be naked or I had to throw on some clothes.
Yeah, I didn't get that message,
Yes.
but I'm
Thank
glad,
you,
I'm
Ava.
glad you
Hi,
didn't show up naked.
Ava.
But
Yes.
no, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. One of the young ladies had also had mentioned, I'm not for sure if it was a question of hers, or if she was just, putting out there um about okay. I think I lost it. No, no,
What's
she was
that?
asking if there's such thing as about too much, too much sex twice. Oh, there it goes. Thank you. Can one have too much sex? Example, twice a day, every day. I mean, I think that part is that's a really good question.
Yeah, that is a
When
great
it
question.
comes down to, different people and some people, I think earlier we were talking about the shame and, through our
Mhm.
education. And if a person is like, okay, I like having sex this many times, and then the other person doesn't, there can be a problem there. So yeah, let's tackle that one. Um,
Yeah.
Renee, that's fine. To
Okay.
just speak on that. Um,
Well, look, I'm gonna be
too much sex.
transparent. I'm gonna be open. I love sex. I've
Okay.
had sex 2 times a day with two different people. It's like I'm getting mine, right? Obviously, it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened with one person. The next thing you know, another
Okay.
guy
Juicy,
coming over,
juicy.
having sex with him too. But but in all seriousness, that's serious. That's true. That's the truth. But
Oh, for sure.
there's so many different sides, right? Each person,
Hmm.
like you were saying, each person is different, and you have
Hmm.
to see what works for you, right?
Right.
Um, and not everybody, and not everybody's body is built to have sex multiple times a day or with many
Hmm.
people. I'm a
That's
nymphomaniac. I can have sex 5 times a day. I remember my first boyfriend; he would be in pain because I still wanted to have, and he was like, I can't anymore. There's nothing else to come out, and I'm like, I want more. So, so you have to also honor what your body is saying. But now
uh-huh.
there's a whole nother part, right? You're taking on energy from other people. So now the Renee that is here right now after studying
Mhm.
Tantra from the Renee before, I
Mhm.
wouldn't necessarily do that. I wouldn't have
Mhm.
sex with two different people the same day. I wouldn't have sex with so many different people
Mhm.
because
You
I
understand the
notice how
energy.
I'm absorbing their energy, and not
Hmm.
only their energy, but the energy from other people that they've taken. And I'm more selective now as to
Right.
who I'm allowing in my personal space in my body. You have to have a level of consciousness, a level of spiritual work that you're doing. And
Hmm.
I'm still cleansing myself constantly because you can have sex with someone, it can be great, but the next thing you know, you're feeling kind of down or sad, and it's not your stuff, it's their stuff that you take on.
Right.
So we have to be
Yeah.
conscious of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Did you have anything
completely
you want
agree.
to add to that, Ravia, before we
Well,
go on
I
to the
agree
next
with that.
question?
I also, like I said, these conversations need to be had before you
Yes.
get into a committed relationship, before you even embark on a dating relationship. Because
Mhm.
if you're somebody that likes sex 2 times a day, and you're dealing with somebody who doesn't like sex 2 times a day or like sex 10 times a day, you're not
Mhm.
equal.
Yeah.
So how you're going to have conflict because I don't want to do it that much or I don't want to do it that little. So find
Mhm.
somebody who likes it the same amount as you do,
Hmm.
Right.
right? Not necessarily,
Definitely.
you don't have to step up your game or change who you are, but don't necessarily get involved with somebody who is more sexually active or whatever it is than you are, because that's going to cause a
Mhm.
problem when you get down the
Exactly.
line.
Well, definitely. And then with my show, my first show that I had created, a virtual first dates. When I was interviewing the people who were I wanted to match, I thought, okay, this person will match with this one. That was important. That was one of the questions that was on my survey that I sent to them, and that was how many times is how many times would you like to have sex in a week?
Mhm.
And then there was a little column for them to explain that. And if there's one person who's like, okay, well, I want to have sex every day, twice a day, and another person who's just like, 3 or 4 times a week is good for me, y'all ain't a match.
Mhm.
You're not a
Right.
match unless no, you're not a match because unless you're open and you're like, well, right now I think it's 3 or 4 times, but I don't really like anyone like that. So maybe that's why, then that person may be open to explore, but still, like, you need to make sure that you're compatible, especially with that, if you are having sex, before marriage. Just put that out
Right.
there for those, for all my Christians and all my loved ones, that are watching.
Right. And I just
uh,
want to add on to Casey Sunshine also said, like, if you are having sex a lot, is there self-care like cranberry juice? If
that's a
you're
great
having
question.
sex, yeah, that's a great question. I think the big thing is if you're having sex a lot, what a lot of people don't learn, and this is why again, I want to say Rabia because here in Brazil, the R is pronounced like an H, and I say my
Ah.
name Renee instead of Renee, so the R's I can't pronounce anymore. Like I just want to say Rabia. I remember the first time I went back to the States from Brazil, I was like calling myself Henne, introducing myself as Henne. Okay, so like you were saying, um, uh, now I lost my train of thought. But
About the care for yourself if you're having a lot of sex.
a lot of
How
sex.
about the
Okay.
self
So like you
care?
were saying, this is needed because we don't have these conversations. But if you're having a lot of sex, it's important right after you have sex to urinate. Like
Hmm.
a lot of women don't know that. So they might get infections. And so
Hmm.
they're thinking, I should drink cranberry juice. But urinate right after. If you're having sex, and there's more than when we keep saying sex, we think of penetration, but there's so many different types of sex, right?
Right. And that's our next question. So you can
Okay.
segue into that as
All right,
well.
so we'll segue into that. So whether you're doing oral sex,
Mhm.
whether you're fingering the person, you need to make sure that person, their teeth is clean, their mouth is clean, their nails are cleaned,
Mhm.
that the nails are groomed well,
I agree.
before they're down there touching you and going down
Uh-huh.
in your private your parts, right?
Right.
So you
Mhm.
make sure you're not getting an infection. And so if you're taking care of those things, more than likely you're okay and don't need to drink cranberry juice. If you like cranberry juice, it can't hurt you, so you can drink it. But like I was saying earlier, what I like to do is cleanse my energy. So I'm saging myself often as well for the spiritual piece, or Palo Santo,
I'm
so I'm
dying.
great.
I'm sorry. She said, so don't stay in the bed trying to look cute. Right.
Right,
Go to the bathroom and pee. Your body knows what to do. Go listen to it.
exactly. And it is natural. A lot of times I remember before I even knew this, I would naturally go and pee
Have to
after having
pee.
sex.
Right.
But Ava, you can walk, all sexily with a nice little switch to the bathroom
To
and
the
go,
bathroom.
Mhm. You be like, honey, I'll be right back. Whoa, whoa,
mm-hmm.
whoa, whoa. No,
You can
just
kind of touch him and be like, yeah, honey, I'll be right back, and strut your way to the bathroom.
I'm gonna go get your hot towel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh gosh. She said, love it, thanks. Okay, awesome. So let's go into the different types of sex. So yeah, I put tantric, Karma Sutra, all that because I really don't know. So that's for y'all to help help with that. So what different types of sex are there? Let's go through that. Oh
Well,
goodness.
Renee's probably more of an expert than me, so
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead and start off.
Well, there's yes, there's so many different types of sex, right?
Hmm.
And again, as I was starting to say, a lot of times people say sex and they're just thinking of penetration, penis and vagina sex. But like I
Hmm.
said, oral sex, there's anal sex, there's the manipulation with the hands, the fingering. And then you can go into all kinds of different kink, BDSM,
Mm.
right? Sometimes people like to go into the fantasy and role playing. And I like to say, when we're going into Tantra, we consider many things sex. The eye
Oh.
gaze, looking into each other's eyes and
Mm.
breathing together. Um, Renee had me ready
Uh,
to run to the Playhouse in Baltimore after one of her shows. Yes,
okay.
yes. So, the eye gazing, the breathing together. And so what
Mm.
happens is a lot of times those are even stronger forms of sex, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
many times when you're doing the tantric and you're breathing together, what happens when you breathe together? Your heart rate begins to beat at the same time. So you're forming a connection and you begin
Mm.
to understand what your partner is feeling. And so through breathing together, you can also, and eye gazing together, you can actually have orgasms. You know,
Mm.
you can have orgasms without the physical touch. Just breathing
Right.
together, looking into each other's eyes. That's sex. And so in a whole tantric sex thing with couples, right? You'll start with the eye gazing, the breathing together, massage, the caressing, right? Oral sex, touching. Sometimes you don't have to even go into penetration or oral sex. Just doing that is beautiful in of itself a lot of times. You
That
can
would
take
be very helpful, right? For people who maybe like, let's just say if it's a person who is not as their bodies don't match as far as their private parts, if they're able to connect in those different ways and be able to basically make love through their eyes and
yeah.
and it's like a mental and spiritual thing happening, like by the time they even get to actually touching, they could already be pleasured.
Yes, and this is, a lot of times there's so many different dysfunctions. Like a
Hmm.
lot of men, and this is really sad that more and more men have erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation at
It's a
younger
health.
ages. I'm seeing this in their 20s, in their
Hmm.
30s right now, in their 40s.
Mhm.
Before it was like 60s, and there's so many reasons because we're going into that porn, we're getting disconnected from our bodies and
Hmm.
masturbating a lot, as for men, right?
Hmm.
And then sometimes women, you're having vaginismus, painful sex. And so these tantric practices help with that while you're still needing to do the work to
Mm-hmm.
heal these dysfunctions, right?
Get your
And so
vitamins, vitamin
exactly,
D. I
herbs,
was
a lot of
told that,
herbs. Go
yeah.
ahead, sorry.
I was told too with vitamin D, like, it can, if you're deficient, you can, your sex drive can go down. And they say, especially with women after they like are pregnant and have a child, the drive goes down. And so
Mhm.
their vitamin D, like they become more deficient,
Yes.
so then they don't have that drive anymore. And that's caused a lot of issues in people's marriages because they don't know.
Right. And that's important because a lot of times we think, especially as Black people, we
Hmm.
think, oh, we get a lot of vitamin D, right, from
We
the
don't.
sun. But this is the thing. And as
I
Black
know I
people,
don't.
we are deficient in vitamin D. We're
Hmm.
deficient, right? Because our bodies, even though we have a lot of melanin and we look beautiful, Black don't crack, we look beautiful way up into our 60s, 70s, but we don't
Hmm.
absorb the vitamin D.
And
So
we don't
those,
go out to get charged up either and be out and enjoy like nature. Like before, I used to say, people talking about nature. I don't want to be out there because I get real cranky about different elements. So I'm like, no, I want it to be perfect weather. And if it's not, I don't want to be out there. But then when I learned more about how, yeah, I have melanin, but I need to go out and get charged by the sun. And if I'm staying away from being outside, then I'm not getting it unless I'm
right.
making sure that my diet has, enough of it.
Mhm.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
we even have to look at where does that come from? Because
Hmm.
naturally we were connected to nature.
Hmm.
We were connected to the elements, especially as Black women. The
Right. That's what I'm
healers,
learning. I'm
right?
learning.
The healers, the witches, the good witches,
Uh
right?
huh.
But
Yeah.
there's all of this fear, and not just with sexuality, but the fear of sexuality, the fear of the healing work, connecting to nature. We had to close that off, and it was
Mm.
a form of protection to not get killed, right? To
Hmm.
not be beaten, to not, to protect ourselves. And so now it developed into today. Oh yeah, we can't be in the elements, right? We,
You're like, it's a hot child outside.
right. But we gotta look at where does that stem from? Because we are
Yeah.
naturally hot. We love the
I
hot
think
more than the cold.
Right. No,
I think there's a whole other reason for that. Like I think there's
mm,
a whole other psychological reason why
mm.
a lot of Black people don't want to go outside in the sun, but that's a whole
Yeah.
different
You're,
conversation.
yeah. I mean, I think it's
But
connected to a lot
it,
of things,
yeah,
even oppression and slavery. Like,
There's so
I don't
many
have to do that.
layers.
it's so many layers. Yeah,
So
but
Yeah.
many
I wanted to
layers.
add one thing though.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand there's a common misconception about intimacy and sex being the same thing.
Oh,
Like
girl.
intimacy and sex
Speak
are
on that.
separate, right? You need intimacy in order to be able to have sexual contact or be sexually pleasured by someone, but it's not the
Mhm.
same. Just because you're having a sexual relationship or having sexual contact with someone does not mean that you are
Mhm.
developing intimacy, which all of those things that Renee was talking about will help you to develop because you will be able to develop that spiritual connection or that energy connection with someone else as opposed to just having the act or the physical part of it, which is why
Right.
a lot of people don't understand that sex is not just physical. The sex is also psychological. Sex is also mental. Sex is also safety. Sex is also touching. It's not just the act of intercourse. And intercourse is just one part of it, right?
Yes.
That's just one part. It's not the
Right.
whole thing. So
Hmm.
when we don't have that education, right, and we're
Mhm.
not told that this is some of the things, and I think it's happening a lot more now where people are on the internet talking about, the clitoris and showing the big diagrams of what the clitoris is and where the pleasure centers are, and then the people talking
Mhm.
about, well, used to talk about erogenous zones. I don't know if that's a conversation that happens anymore, but when you're doing those types, when you're having that type of conversation, it's not necessarily education, but it's information that people are
Hmm.
getting a lot more readily than they were before.
Yes.
Right. Now that makes a lot of sense. I think that that's something that we have to keep in mind because I hear it so much when people say, "Oh, intimacy," and they automatically think it's sex. I mean, of course, I can't say if it's more men or more women because I think that a lot of people in general are ignorant to that because we don't have that
Right.
education all the time, access. I mean, there's access to it, but you just don't even know what to look for if you haven't been taught.
Right.
So um definitely. Let's see here. Okay, so we went into that with these questions, as far as different types of sex. How this one I love. How important is confidence when it comes to sex? I asked a couple of people, some friends, and it's just so funny to see who, like, which direction they took it. Like, oh, I think that's more of a, on the woman. Oh, I think that's more on the man. But I
Mhm.
know that it's on both. So ladies, let's go into that, about how important is confidence when it comes to sex. And whoever would like to take it first.
I think it's important,
Mhm.
but it depends on the context of what you're talking about. Are you, if it's confidence in the fact that you have ability to please someone sexually is different from confidence in the fact that you are confident in how your body looks and the way that you want to take off your clothes, right? It could be
Very
those
true.
two things are different. So
Hmm.
is it confident in yourself and your self-esteem and the way that you feel about yourself as a sexual being, or is it confidence in, well, I know that I know what I'm doing, so whoever I'm with, that's what's going to happen, right?
Both.
Confidence, both. It could be both, right? But i don't i
Yeah.
don't i don't necessarily think that confidence is the word for it, right? It's a matter of safety, because
Hmm.
even if you don't feel confident enough, like for example, if someone has issues with their body and don't necessarily want to take off all of their clothes while they're engaging in sex,
Hmm.
if you feel safe enough with that person, you might at some point get to that place, right? So I think
Hmm.
it's more of a matter of
Yeah, it
confidence
could
is
grow.
okay, but
Hmm.
safety is more important, right? It's important to have a safe environment and to be sexually safe with each other to be able to either develop or exude the confidence that you kind of already have.
Definitely. Yeah.
Hmm.
And Miss
Yeah.
Pranar,
Well,
take
now
that.
I'm rethinking what I was going to say because I really like what you said, and that's important. Because traditionally I say confidence is important. Confidence is important for you to feel comfortable to let go, and you can have a better time, into more intimacy with your partner. But I like
Right.
what you said. That confidence can be built through therapy, through work. But if you feel safe with the person, I really like that. If you feel safe with the person, you
Hmm.
can open up
Hmm.
and enjoy. So I like that answer. Yeah.
Because that, because that
I
is your
think
confidence,
what I was
and
gonna say.
that's your confidence. I guess there's so many pieces to that, right? Because that's your confidence in that person, like that you're the
That's true. That's
confidence in them about how
Well,
safe
yeah.
they make you feel.
yeah.
So you feel confident that I can trust this person fully to be all of me,
Yeah.
and I'm
And
a
that's
good
confidence.
I'm in
Yeah.
safe
Yeah.
hands, all
Yeah.
state. So, yeah, but it's so funny that you had mentioned that though, because that was the first thing I thought about when I was talking to one of my good guy friends, and he was just like, "Well, I think that that's more on the guy, and how he's gonna, perform his confidence, it's that." But I was just like, "Well, I think it's both, and I think that, for me, I would say it's two different ways. There's going to be the confidence that maybe a man gives you when you feel desired and you feel like the most sexiest woman, that ever existed, then you might kind of go into it with a different kind of confidence because it's like you gas me up and like, yeah, you're right. I am that chick,
Mhm.
I am a sexy goddess, and then so you may turn into someone else, like when they say different people bring different things out of you, like
Hmm.
Mhm.
that. And then also there is that confidence that you're comfortable with this person, and maybe like you're a little bit, I don't know, like you really get that person going, so you're like, oh yeah, I'm about to come in here and tear them, turn them out, type thing. Because then you have that kind of confidence, like I know that I'm good at XYZ or intimacy or different sexual acts. I know that this is what you like, so then you come into it very confident. So that was, it's
Mhm.
interesting that we're kind of like thinking the same, talking about
Yeah.
the same thing, and then gosh, there's so much.
There's so much.
Well,
The
I
thing
want to
is
ask a
also,
question.
uh-huh.
How do we develop confidence, right? How do we develop that confidence in our sexuality for
Mhm.
women specifically if we're not allowed to explore that, right? Because most of the time we're not
Yeah.
allowed to explore to the point of where I know that this particular size of penis I like, right? Or I know that
Mhm.
this particular way that this person does this thing, or they have to have this type of weight, or this is the type of thing that they have to do to me or touch me in this place. If we're not allowed to do that, we're not allowed to
Mhm.
have, well, not, I'm not going to say allowed, we're not allowed to openly have sexual experiences with different types of people so that we can learn how to have that
Mhm.
type of confidence and, oh, I know I can do this thing very well. Because if you can do that thing very well, then there comes that stigma and that shame
Mhm.
about, oh,
Mhm.
well, you must have had it, you must have done that a lot, because
Yeah.
how do you know how to do that?
Or
So
if
if we're
you do it,
not,
So that
or
has to
you think you
change,
do it
right?
well because
you
Mhm.
think
you've
you
only done it with this person. You like, oh, I know how the way they
right, he
react. You know.
said right,
Yeah.
but how do you won't know that until you get to a
Right.
place
Yeah.
where you're
Until
able
school.
to explore and able to do that. And we're supposed to do that in our teenage years, but
Mhm.
oftentimes we're not allowed to do that.
And that's why these conversations are important,
Yeah.
right? And hopefully, more and more people are watching these, and hopefully, people who have teenage kids are watching these and showing it with their kids and having
Right.
discussions, you
Yeah.
know, and getting rid of that shame and that guilt around sexuality because
Right.
it does more harm than good,
It does.
way more harm than good. And and that and yeah, and the confidence, even if you looking at like what V you were saying,
Okay.
for both men and women, it affects both, right? And so a lot of times men have performance anxiety, and so when they have that
Hmm.
Mhm.
performance anxiety, that affects their confidence. And so then
Mhm.
now they're not connected because they're in their head, they're anxious, like, oh my God, am I doing well, am I not doing well,
Right.
does she enjoy this, does she not enjoy this? And then you're going to do it wrong, and then it creates a rift in the relationship. Same thing,
Right.
with the woman. She's not, she hasn't explored her body, like you said, so she doesn't know
Mhm.
what she likes. She's not confident, or maybe she had way too much. So then she was like, okay, I can't say anything. So then that might come off, as not
Right.
now not being confident. It's just
Right.
like
Right. Right. They would say
because of
worry
all
about
that
thick
fear and
thighs
that
and
shame.
stomach.
Mm.
Yeah. So.
No, but that's good. I mean, like I think to what you were saying, Rabia, about that, you're right. I mean, even though now you have more, I guess, opportunities or more permission to do so, you still may be in your head. Because I know plenty of women who will talk and just have conversations, and they're still like, I don't
Yeah, I
know,
don't want to
you
say.
know, because it's in your head. So it's been in your head for so long. So it's kind of like
Right.
you're second guessing yourself. But I do think it's important to get around, people who are open and free, even if it's not like, let's just say, like, maybe I might not do everything that Pradara, would do, or everything that you may do, Rabia, but I can still learn from your experiences because you're more open, more free, different things like that. I'm grateful for the people who are in my life and the women who are more open, even though even though there might have been areas that I might have been a little bit like, oh, I don't know about that, but I was able to learn, from their experiences and then see, like, maybe, that resonates with me. Maybe that's something that, I want to be more that, more open, in that
Mm.
area. So
Mhm.
it's very important to put yourself around other confident,
Mhm. And that's
people,
what and that's what I do. Like I teach a lot of women, like
Mhm.
whether in group or private. Like I teach them about their body parts. I have the women take a mirror, look at themselves. Let's
Start loving
learn
yourself.
what our genitals look like, and we
Mhm.
start building confidence. I have so
Right.
many women that come to me who don't know their anatomy. They don't know what
Mhm.
feels good, and so through this work, they connect more with their body and start to build confidence to have better relationships, a better sex life. Because
Mhm.
pleasure is our birthright. It's our birthright.
Yeah.
We deserve to have pleasure.
We deserve
We
it.
deserve to have a great sex life. You know?
Tell someone they
Mm.
deserve it. Tell your neighbor that they deserve it.
Absolutely.
No,
Let's
that's
Absolutely.
so
let's
funny.
have
Like
a
I,
good
I
sex
won't
life.
lie. I won't lie. In these different conversations, like with girlfriends, how we talk about like different body parts and how we're like, oh, okay, I've seen like, why are the body parts they're not more, pretty, and then
Mm,
sometimes you have seen some body parts, you're like, that was a pretty,
Mm.
peace, but I'm like, it would be so nice if, you had a bedazzled with JJ. But then I was like, that might be dangerous because if it was bedazzled with diamonds, then you might get jacked in more than one way.
Some people do that. Some
I
people
know, but
do that.
it's probably unsafe.
Yes. So
Hmm.
Ava says we need a field trip to Brazil. Girl, come
Yeah.
on one of my retreats.
I know.
Come on one of my retreats in
I'm
Brazil.
looking at your videos. I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so amazing. You just dancing, out there on the beach and dancing. I think I seen a video you were dancing with this guy, and I don't know what dance that was, but I loved it. I was like, oh, this is just everything, like the
Yes.
movies. Um, okay, so let's see if we can get this other question. We kind of talked about the communication style, but it's very important about the communication style. So, how do you form a communication style if you rushed into sex, right? So, there's a lot of folks who just rush into sex and then someone's mind changes. This person's like, oh, okay, well, I thought we were this. And then you're like, oh, well, I thought this, and then you just can't get on the same page. So, like, how do you do that? How do you like rewind and, you know, get on the same page with the communication style or create one?
Use your words. Use
That's
your
simple.
words. But then
Yeah.
also be okay with the fact that that person might make a different decision, right?
Mhm.
Is if you rushed into sex because you felt like that's the type of relationship that you were going to have, and then later on you decided, oh no, that's not what I want, and I tell this
Mhm.
person, hey, I know that this is what we started out doing, but this is kind of where I want to go. Do you agree with that or not? And if they say nah, because this is really what I want, then you figure out how to move on
Mhm.
from there. But if you don't say
Right.
anything, and then you're going on continuing with this relationship and you're still having sex, but then in your mind again all of that, all those memories and those messages and all that stuff comes back. Now, oh, I really don't want to be this to this person, so now you're not going to have a pleasurable experience anymore
Right.
because you're all in your head. So just say what it is that you want to say, communicate it with words. Like
Mhm.
Right.
I
Yeah.
changed my mind. Like I thought
Mhm.
that this is what I wanted. I thought that this was okay. Or even if you feel like you got pressured into it, say, you know
Mhm.
what? In the beginning, I thought that that's what you wanted. I thought that
Mhm.
that's what I had to do in order to be able to get you, but I think I don't really want that anymore.
Mhm.
Mm.
So knowing whoever it is that you're with, and
Right.
also being prepared that maybe they might make a different decision as far as your relationship is concerned.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is all I wanted from you. So let me just go ahead and move on and got to let them
Mhm.
move on and
Yeah.
find
Right.
somebody who aligns with that, which is why I say have these conversations in the beginning, right? Have these
Mhm.
conversations before you even get to body parts touching, right?
Mhm.
Is this what you want? Do
Hello.
you want to just have sex? If you
Right.
just want to have sex and I'm not really on that,
Right.
then
Right.
you can find somebody else that
That
wants
is
to do
on
that
that
or that
page.
likes
Mhm.
that,
Right.
Right.
right?
For sure.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they out there.
Yeah,
They
clear,
really
clear,
do.
honest communication. Because sometimes people are going out, they had a drink or two, feeling kind of good, and they do it, right? They rush into
Mhm.
it, they have sex. And then
Mhm.
maybe the next day they're feeling differently. Or maybe not even because they drink alcohol.
Mhm.
So many different reasons. But we
Right.
can change. Like you said, we can want one thing one day, another day. Maybe,
Mhm.
we just got wrapped up in the mood and the energy,
Mhm.
and then later. But I think it's also important to really go in and think about, okay, why do I want to change it up now? Why is it that
Right.
I don't want to do this? Is it because I'm afraid of being like a hoe and moving
Mm-hmm.
too fast? So now I got to backtrack and be like, this is not normally me. I want
Mm.
something else. Or is it that you really do want something else? And so
Right.
that's important. Decide and really look at, okay, what's happening? Why did I first and foremost rush and have sex?
Mhm.
Was it because that's what I really wanted to do, and now I'm getting scared? Or
Mm-hmm.
did I feel pressure, like Rabiia was saying, to have sex? You gotta really analyze and process. Okay,
And work through
what
that.
happened on this first encounter? And now, what is it that I really want? Why do I, if it is something else that you want, why is it that I want that something else? Where is that
Right.
Right.
stemming from? And then,
Yeah.
so first you have to have that honest and open communication with yourself, then
Mhm.
having that with your partner,
I
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That goes
Awesome.
back to the culture, right? We got to get
Yeah.
rid of this thing about body count. Why is that important? I've had sex. I might have children before I even know you. So that means I've had sex before. Why
before.
is that important? Why does that
Right,
place value on me because of how many people I've had sex with?
right.
The whole
People have
issue.
that ego too. You're right. Like,
Right.
to some of those people, they're like, well, I just want to act like you didn't, I was your first, you know.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and if that's the case, that's great. But if it's not, it's like, come on, like,
Yeah.
don't be unrealistic with each other, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But
Right.
to that note, there are things that you could do to make your partner feel special.
Hmm.
Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is my first time doing this. Like maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
something different, not with, the
Not that,
penetration,
but
but like
it.
maybe he does something and you're like, oh my God, I've never done this before. So
Right.
you could still find something that's special between the two of you, you
Mm.
know, and yes, it's feeding that ego a little bit, but
Mhm.
people like that, and people
Mm-hmm.
do want to feel like there is something between the two of us, something special that you haven't done with anyone else. So that's important to find that unique thing within this relationship that each couple can have. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm. I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Well, definitely. The last question, I feel like we kind of touched on it, but it was talking about that studies show that 75% of women, of heterosexual women, are unsatisfied sexually. Why is that? And can it be fixed or are they doomed?
They're doomed. No, I'm just joking. Can definitely be fixed, right?
It can.
Yeah, I
It,
think so too, especially with what you guys are talking about with the
Yeah. I mean, the numbers
communication.
are so high for so many different reasons. But yes, we
Mhm.
kind of touched along a lot of this. One,
Mhm.
because you're not getting the education, right? You're
Right.
not getting the sex education. People don't know what to do. People don't know how to have more intimacy, how to have more connection. People don't
Mhm.
know, when we're looking at heterosexual couples, right? Men don't know how to really finger someone. Men don't know how to truly have sex. They're watching porn, and so they thinking that they gotta pound
So
on
they're
this
getting their
woman, and that's what
ideas.
feels good. They're
Yeah.
not learning that you have to watch her, see what her body is saying, feel her body, so that you know how to move. And doing slower
Hmm.
thrust and just going slower and connecting. Like there's so many different things that's not happening, and
Hmm.
so this is one of the reasons why I love Tantra, because in Tantra, if a heterosexual couple is having sex, right? This could be with same sex, but we're talking about heterosexual right now.
Hmm.
And the man, if he comes before the woman, which is a lot of times, then um, that really is premature ejaculation in the Tantra world. So there's a
Mm.
lot of men out there have premature ejaculation, right?
Mm.
Because women take a lot longer, at least 20 minutes to warm up. Our genitals is it's internal, right? The men
Hmm.
is external. It takes them a lot quicker to get
Hmm.
aroused, get
Right.
excited. Like they only need to really just think about sex, and the next thing you know, just the word sex, and then they're hard. I'm,
Right. All right.
I'm
That makes sense.
exaggerating a little bit, but it's a little bit easier. So they have to go slower. They have to warm up the woman's body, which a lot of times doesn't happen. A
Hmm.
lot of times it's a 5 minute foreplay, then they try to
mm,
stick their thing in, and the
Hmm.
woman is still dry, or you're getting lube to put on because you're not lubricated enough. But you have to
Hmm.
properly prepare her body, warm her up at least
Hmm.
20 minutes, at least. And a lot of women need 30, 40 minutes, you
Right.
know, and you would get better numbers.
And
Yeah.
that makes sense. No, there was a sex coach in one of the rooms, Clubhouse, and I'm trying to think of her name. I feel so bad. I think it's Davita. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's amazing. And
Mhm.
she kind of spoke about that, and I thought that was really interesting. Just sitting in, listening, not like asking any questions, but just listening. And she was just talking about how all like the touching and the caressing for both sides, how it's going to improve the experience because you're connecting and you're getting worked up. Gotta defy. gotta. That's right. You
I
gotta
think I got to
define
defrost
that
the
thing.
cookie.
Yeah, it ain't
So
no.
bad. It
It
took
ain't
me a
no.
second to understand that. I was like, gotta divorce the cookie? Like, what? I was like,
Gotta
okay,
defy.
Renee, it did not take you that
Right.
long to get that.
It's not. It's no TV dinner, huh? All I was
mm.
thinking about is for some reason I was thinking about cars, and I was just thinking about like you could just either for a man, since he's outward, it's kind of like, he's already there. It's just like someone sitting on the curb waiting to be picked up versus someone you got to go in and get, and a
Mm-hmm.
woman is like, you got to go in and get it, and a man, he's out there on the curb. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
but yeah, so back to what she was saying is that, just that the caressing, the foreplay, and if you do that right, then, overall, sexual experience is going to be better. And because warming it up as the as
Defrosting that coochie.
Defrosted the coochie. Okay.
Poontang. Okay.
It and it doesn't have to just be foreplay in the
Uh-huh.
physical sense, right? Like you were
Mhm.
talking about with tantra and all of those other things, but it can also be just talk to me nice, right?
Yes.
Just because
That's big
that
for
really gets
women.
me going. Just say something nice and sweet. Just
Yeah.
tell me you love me and I'm there, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't
Hmm.
even have to be all of that. But for me, I think that what needs to be involved in order for that to change, for women to have pleasurable experiences, is one, like I said, the stigma needs to be removed.
Mhm.
The idea that women are not supposed to be pleasured sexually needs to be removed. The messaging
Yes.
is in the wrong direction. It needs to be, boy, keep it in your pants until you know how to please this woman, as opposed to keep your legs
Mhm.
closed until you figure out what this dude is doing. Right? That
Yeah.
needs to change. And not
Mhm.
now, is that going to happen? We don't know. But I think that a lot of those things involved might help with women psychologically to be
Hmm.
able to get to a place of pleasure if we're not necessarily having to think about or even process all of those things when we get into a sexual contact situation.
Right,
Mhm.
right, right.
Exactly.
Which is probably the best. I mean, well, it is. Me personally, I think that it's the best way and the most responsible way, to do anything is to
Hmm.
make sure that you're well informed,
Yeah.
um, and before you go into it, before you make a business deal, before you do a project, before you do anything, you should be trying to educate yourself and understand, okay, this is where I'm at, you know.
Right.
But too, I had mentioned for ladies, and I wanted to clear that up because I know that men like, a good, stroking the ego or someone talking nice to them, for them to kind of get, feel themselves as well. So
Mhm.
definitely you be nice. Tell them he the man, I guess.
It's both ways. Yeah. It definitely goes
Mhm.
both ways.
Yes, well, I think that we covered it, so we're not doomed. We all right. We can. There's always a way, to fix it. And so, for starters, we got to start with ourselves, right? And understanding ourselves and being real with ourselves and being open and willing to connect,
Mhm.
right? Is there
Yes.
any last thoughts that you guys would like to mention before you tell us where we can find you, your social medias, and your services that you may provide?
Therapy helps.
Yeah.
I second that.
Therapy helps, especially if you've been sexually violated or had some type of sexual control removed from you. You're not going to be able to have pleasurable sex if you
Mhm.
still have that trauma connected to your emotions. So
Mhm.
therapy definitely helps to be able to get to a healthy sexual place.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
definitely agree. There's still so much stigma and shame around doing therapy. It's gotten better,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot, especially in the Black communities. Um,
Absolutely.
we think that no, we got to be strong. We could do this ourselves. But yeah, therapy helps. And I like the conjunction of therapy and tantra. So a lot of people that I work with, I tell them do therapy, have a therapist, and also do the work with me as a tantra therapist,
Mm.
right?
I agree
Because
with that.
a lot of the tantra work, right? A lot of the traumas, the pain stays in our body in a cellular memory. So through the
Hmm.
breath
Mm.
work and the movement that I'm doing, it's helping to move it through. But with the talk therapy, you're getting those aha moments, and it's like, oh, right, it makes sense. And then now you're combining that with the breath work and this movement through like
Mhm.
tantric meditation to really get that moving through your body.
Yep.
So
I
it's a
agree.
great combination if you could do
I
the two.
absolutely agree with that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Definitely. I love that. That's all the way around. We're going to
Yeah.
get this
There's
healing.
there's a great book by Peter Levine, Dr. Peter Levine, called Awaken the Tiger Within.
Mm.
And you probably read that, Rabia. I read this in
Yeah.
school. It was one of the books that we had to read, studying psychology, right, about trauma. And he talks about how we hold trauma in our bodies, and the animals in the wild, they what they do when they have trauma, they shake. They release. If you have a
Mm,
cat or dog, you see it. The
Hmm.
tigers in the wild, when they have a trauma, something happens, they shake. But people, we stop doing that. We used to. If you look at
mm,
little kids who are really sad or they're angry, what happens? They're like trembling, they're like crying and they're
mhm,
shaking. But
mhm,
then
Hmm.
we're taught over time that we have to keep our composure.
mm,
Don't cry. Don't do. You can't get too emotional. So we're like, we've stifled all of that, and we're
mhm,
no longer doing what comes natural to us to
mm.
release the traumas that's in our bodies. And so
Wow.
Absolutely.
through the tantra, I work with clients and I just have them shake sometimes. I'm like, just
Mm.
shake.
Shake
And
it
then
out.
they're shaking, shake it off, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I actually have a shake it off meditation. Speaking of
Mm,
that, on my website that you guys can
love it.
check out, and that's great to do during a full moon as well, because a full moon is about releasing what no longer serves you, you
Mm,
know. And
Right.
so, so this is work that needs to be done.
yes.
Doing the talk therapy, doing the tantric work, working on the sacred sexuality, releasing those traumas in the body, the blockages, the guilt, the shame. It's important because, like I said
Absolutely.
earlier, it affects our all aspects of our lives, not just having better sex, but your work life is going to be better. Your
Mm,
relationships are better. If you're in school, that's going to be better. Your income is going to start to flow more.
Hmm.
Everything just changes for the better.
mm.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna start using some of your videos for interventions because some people might need
Yes.
that. Hmm.
Yes.
Definitely. There's a
Yes.
lot to learn on both. And I really appreciate, all the value that you both have brought to this episode. This is part one. So we will have a part two. We're going to try and get, a male and a female so we can hear that perspective as well. Don't want to leave our fellas out, but I do believe that tonight's episode is very helpful for both sides because obviously if we're both together, like if we both get it together, it's going to be a better situation. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
you both can share quickly where we can find you, where the audience can find you, and they can contact you for any questions or services that you provide.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead,
Oh,
Ravi.
okay. Well, you can contact me at Prandara Prim _ Tantra on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram at Prandara Prim. Yes, PRANDHARAPREM _
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
And I'm
you.
on Facebook as well as Twitter as Renée Adolphe, ADOLPHE. And I have both websites. So you're going to find me one of two ways, Prandara Prim or Renée Adolphe. So
All
that's my
right.
website, www.prandaraprim.com or www.reneeadolphe.com.
Awesome. And Miss Ravia.
So my agency is the South Sacramento Mental Health Collaborative, and so we're on Instagram and at South Sac MHC, and we're also at www.southsacmhc.com.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
And I'm
I will.
following you now.
Yes, and I will make sure that it's posted too on the playbacks and on Virtual First Dates YouTube, and we will have make sure that it's on the HBCU Lounge Network as well for those playbacks in the description, so you all can just be able to click on it. Just click on it and take you there. So, well, thank you so much, ladies. This was so much
Thank
fun. I
you.
appreciate you
Thank you,
all
V.
sharing this Sunday and before Valentine's Day. So y'all, let's ask some questions. Before you have that lonely sex or your regular sex. Make sure you ask the questions, get on the same page, so that it could be a pleasurable experience for the both of you.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Well, thank you so much for having me, V. I enjoyed this. It was so
Yes.
nice to meet you, Rabia. Let's keep in
you as
touch for
well.
sure. It's great. I
Absolutely.
enjoyed myself. Thank you. And
Awesome.
thank
I
you
did
for
too.
everyone who came on, who was watching. Thank you,
Yes.
Casey
Love the audience.
Sunshine, Ava Joy, everybody who came on. And thank you for the questions.
Thank you. Well, for the audience, it is good night till next time. We will be talking confidence in 2 weeks. So make sure to tune in and we'll see you then. Good night.
Night.
Good night.